or prior agreement is out of order. I mean, we have a state and we have a sovereignty. We have sovereignty over our borders, land, air and sea. Anybody who wants to come in must obtain a permission. I mean, how can this be a delegation of diplomats and come in this manner? We completely reject this.
They do raise the question that if they were really a diplomatic mission, why didn't they come through the normal route, and that will be through the Egyptian border with Libya. The National Council did say that at this stage it did not want to have any kind of international diplomatic row, so it handed them over to British authorities as quick as it could.
Well, the unrest in Libya is prompting new fears for the global economy. Attacks on oil depots and slowing production there have caused U.S. crude oil to hit a 2.5-year high, rising above $106. As a result, stock markets are taking a big hit. Tokyo's Nikkei average is down more than 2% on Monday, while Australia's benchmark index is down by about 1%. Well, in Spain, fears of a shortage in the oil supply due to the unrest in Libya has caused the government to take innovative measures. Sonia Gallego explains.
There's a change of pace happening on highways throughout Spain. Across the country, drivers are being encouraged to ease off the pedal, and it's all in aid of conserving energy. The unrest and uprisings experienced in oil-rich Arab countries have meant a surge in the price of petroleum, spelling trouble for countries dependent on imports.
Well, we are pretty sure, because we have made a lot of studies dealing with this problem, and our conclusion is that we save at least 0.7 liters per 100 kilometers.
Around 80% of the country's energy relies on imported oil and gas. That's a fifth above the average for the entire European Union. So for the next 4 months, the speed limit on Spain's highways goes down from 120 kilometers per hour to 110. That, says the government, will reduce oil imports by 5%, saving the country just over $3 billion.
Well, Libyan oil currently accounts for just over 13% of Spain's demand. And while Spain's oil supplies are in no danger just yet, the reduction in this national speed limit is just one of the ways that the government is trying to get people to cut down on fuel. And that's a scenario that's not been seen in this country since the 1973 oil crisis.
Also approved increased use of biofuels, a modest reduction in train fares, and subsidized tire exchanges. But with a sluggish economy still struggling its way out of the recession, the measure hasn't exactly been welcomed with open arms, with many seeing it as a ploy to distract the country from other problems.
I think that there are more important things that the government should be concerned with, and they shouldn't be wasting people's time and money on this.
It is laughable. It doesn't really contribute anything to the economy in general, if that is what it's about.
While oil prices remain high, the debate goes on over what alternatives there are for Spain's energy consumption. A sign of the times in an increasingly shaky climate. Sonia Gallego, AlJazeera, Madrid.
People from Ghana are among foreign nationals fleeing Libya at the moment, but they say their country isn't doing enough to help them. When we come back, we'll find out why they feel abandoned by their own government. And France's far-right leader takes pole position. Could Marine Le Pen really become the country's next president? Stay with us.
Business Latest is brought to you by Capco in just about everything. Business Latest is brought to you by Capco in just about everything.
Welcome back. Here's another look at our top stories on Al Jazeera. Libyan state television has broadcast an appearance by Muammar Gaddafi. He addressed crowds of supporters in Tripoli's Green Square. Well, Gaddafi's forces have retaken the town of Bin Jawad in the center of the country, but rebel fighters have held positions close to the capital and in cities and towns in the east. And in Egypt, security forces in Cairo have broken up a crowd of protesters who were trying to get access to the Ministry of Interior. Men in plain clothes, armed with knives, petrol bombs and bricks, also clashed with protesters. Libyan officials around the world who have, quote, joined the revolution are being considered legitimate representatives of the new Revolutionary National Council. And one of those is Ali Arishi. He's a former Libyan minister and currently in the United States. My colleague Shiad Ratansi spoke to him in Washington.
When I announced my defection or resignation, as we may call it, from the regime, I called upon all ambassadors and diplomats to do the same, to announce their absolute and final independence from the regime, but to maintain their positions in ways that will serve the interests of the Libyan people and express the will of the Libyan people, which is, there is now a consensus of regime change. Now people were in limbo because they were representing this vague thing from a diplomatic point of view, which we call the will of the Libyan people, which is the revolution of February 17th. Now there is no longer ambiguity. You are either representing the legitimate representative of the Libyan people, which is the council, or you still swear an allegiance to a terrorist organization that disguises itself as a government.
And we'll get on to the implications for the Libyan diplomatic community in a moment, the international community. But as far as this council is concerned, then it really is just a reaction to events of the last 3 weeks. There weren't any long-held plans for such a council. There was no framework or structure that had been held in place in the event that Gaddafi would be in this position.
Well, let me put it this way. We were surprised by our success. It was all sudden, that this kind of regime has a formidable terrorist organization, and they are ruthless. They have a lot of money to buy a lot of favors, and there are committed young people who decided that enough is enough, and they were willing to put their lives on the line for the cause of freedom, justice, the rule of law, and so on.
Migrant workers in Libya have been leaving the country since the uprising began. But on the Tunisia-Libya border, workers from the African country of Ghana say they're being discriminated against. And many feel the government has abandoned them. Mohammed